Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something a listener actually sent in. White bread.
White bread, yeah. Seems simple, right?
Exactly. But our mission today is to sort of unpack that,
Yeah.
to look into what seems like a really ordinary thing and maybe find some surprising stuff you wouldn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Forget just the fluffy slice itself. We want to get into its hidden history, what it really represents.
Absolutely, because when something is so common, like white bread, you just stop seeing it, don't you?
Yeah, go for
But
it.
the fact that it is everywhere kind of makes you wonder, how did that happen? What's behind that simplicity? We're aiming to look a bit deeper than that.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this. White bread. What's the first image that comes to mind? Probably soft, maybe a bit bland, something loads of us grew up with.
Definitely. Comfort food for many.
But that very commonness, maybe that's our starting point. Like,
Yeah.
why this specific type of bread? Why did it get so huge? What's the actual story behind that texture, that taste? Or maybe the lack of strong taste?
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is that white bread wasn't, always the norm. Not by a long shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, historically, if you look back across different cultures, bread was mostly whole grain, heartier stuff.
Right.
The shift towards white bread, that often tied to social class, to status.
How so?
Well, the process, milling the grain down, getting rid of the bran and germ to make it white and fine, that took more work, more refinement.
Ah, okay. More effort, more cost.
Exactly. So the end product, the white loaf,
Yeah.
it became a symbol. It meant you were wealthy, privileged enough to afford it.
Wow, okay. So here's where it gets really interesting for me. This bread, which started out as a sign of like affluence,
Mm-hmm.
how did it end up becoming this everyday staple for almost everyone? What happened? What drove that massive change from fancy food to just bread?
Right. That's the key transformation. And if you look at the bigger picture, the Industrial Revolution is huge here.
Yeah.
Absolutely massive.
Okay, technology then.
Yeah.
Big time. New milling techniques, industrial bakeries.
Mm.
Suddenly, you could produce white flour and therefore white bread on a scale and at a price that just wasn't possible before.
I see. So mass production kicks in?
It makes it accessible.
Right.
Suddenly, it's not just for the rich anymore. It floods the market,
So it flips from the bread of the elite, the few, to the bread of, well, the masses.
pretty much.
And that shift alone, that tells a huge story, doesn't it? About society changing, how food gets made, even how our ideas about what's good bread totally evolved.
And it raises a really interesting point, for anyone listening. When you grab a loaf of white bread now,
Mm.
do you think about any of that journey?
Probably not, no.
Likely not, right. And that's exactly why looking at these seemingly simple, everyday things can be so, well, eye-opening. They're often packed with these complex social and economic histories.
Absolutely. You just pick up a slice, make a sandwich, don't give it a second thought.
But just scratching the surface like this, you see, okay, even the most basic stuff around us have all these layers. History, culture, it's all baked in, so to speak.
Couldn't resist that one, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, the main takeaway here is that something as, let's face it, unremarkable as white bread can seem,
Hmm.
it carries these big stories inside it, stories about class, industrial change, how our diets have shifted over time.
So what's the final thought for our listeners then? I guess it's take a look around you. Consider the everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Your coffee cup, your T-shirt, the white bread on your counter. What hidden stories might they hold if you dug a little deeper?
What other things that seem simple on the surface actually have these really complex histories or present-day realities?
It's just a reminder, I suppose, that there's often so much more going on beneath the surface than we realize at first glance.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.